If you're like me, you leave your video cameras on the default settings, or you change the frames per seconds if you ever look at it at the highest possible setting. I used to think that would give me better pictures, and in some cases it can, but oftentimes it doesn't. I started experimenting and looking into it, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what I found. 60. Each one of these series of videos is first filmed in 60 frames per second, then 48, then 30, then 24. As you look at these, you'll notice that as the frames per second decreases, the apparent light level seems to increase. 30. When you get down to 20 frames or 24 frames per second, it's almost usable video. I mean, 24. For most of your purposes, you could actually use this. At 60, you probably couldn't. Of course, at least with a GoPro, you get to some light levels where it just doesn't matter. There isn't enough light to see anything worthwhile. I think I did this series. Yeah, I did this series after dark, and there was a bright enough moon where I could see, but the camera really couldn't 60. Pick it up. 48. Another interesting fact is that all of the broadcasts on TV and movies and YouTube and, you know, Facebook or whatever, all the rest of those places only use 30 frames per second. So it doesn't really matter if you upload something to YouTube at 60 frames per second. Basically, YouTube's going to cut out every other frame. So I know somebody's out there saying, wait a second, if I shoot 24. At 60 frames per second, I'm getting twice as much video. The images are going to be crisper and clear. Well, this guy out there did a video on YouTube. If I can find it, I'll link it. He did video from 24 frames per second all the way up to 150 frames per second, and I could not tell 60. The difference. Nobody, I think, can tell the difference. Your eye just isn't that calibrated. So if they only broadcast at 30, there's not really a point in using up all the computer space for a 60 frame per second video. 48. My GoPro Black has a low light setting. It only works when you have the frames per second set at 60. I don't know what the modern cameras have, but on that camera, if you turn the low light setting on and the frames per second to 60, you get basically 30. The same illumination as if you had it set at 24 frames per second. $24. 60. Besides using up a whole lot of computer space, the 60 frames per second also does something funny to the video, and I'm not sure I'm the best person to describe it. There's a lot of guys out there that can do a better job than this than I. But when you watch a movie, you know, it has a certain look to it, and most people can tell when somebody plays a movie clip, it looks different than when somebody just does a video of their own on a GoPro or whatever. And that has to do with the movie's not using the same high frames per second, and it gives a certain softness to the video, and I don't even know if that's the right way to describe 30. It. If you do know how to describe it, feel free to leave a comment. I'm definitely not an expert. With this last series of videos, 24. You couldn't really see anything until 24. So, I don't know. I'm sitting here editing this and it's boring me. I guess I'll speed up the rest of them. Well, this video's been sitting on my desktop for a while, and I kept meaning to get around to it. I couldn't quite figure out a way to make it all come together, and you know what? In the end, it didn't. So, no charge. Anyways, I'll be coming up with some better videos here shortly. Made another trip to Alabama last week, and some interesting things happened there, so I'll put that up here shortly. Anyways, thanks for watching. The Fritz 423 out.